All right, everybody, welcome to the Fairfax Sports Report. My name is Greg Wyshynski of the Connection Newspapers, BJ Cooper Rules of the Connection Newspapers, and of course, the lovely and talented Jeff Graham of the Connection Newspapers. We are live this evening to talk to you about a myriad of things. Chief among them, I believe, would be the Virginia AAA Basketball Championships that went final this last weekend. Unfortunately, the Northern Region went 0 for 2, as we all know. But we'll also be talking about the NCAA tournament coming up, along with some spring sports preview. And, of course, because we are live, we'll be taking phone calls in a bit. But first, before we get going with the show, I want to thank the folks that make this show possible every single week, talking about the underwriters. And those people would be our good friends at CCI Screen Printing for all of your screen printing needs, 703-978-0257. And Quality Care Ford Service Center, servicing all makes and models, 703-383-6299. And please remember that I have a book and that you can get it on Amazon. Globe Pucks and 10-cent beer, the 101 worst ideas in sports history. There it is. All right, boys. What do you say? Typically we do a little news and notes kind of thing, but I think the only really news and or note that we can talk about is the fact that Maryland is in the NIT.
That's quite a note. We've talked before about bias in the local media with the Redskins and everybody being on the Redskins bandwagon. Obviously, the Redskins are so great even when they're losing. But I noticed some of that with Maryland. Last night on the ticker it says underneath one of the local news broadcasts it says Maryland makes 13th consecutive postseason appearance. And it's like,
yeah, I know.
Are you kidding me? They didn't make the NCAA tournament, but we're still in love with Maryland. Meanwhile, George Mason gets an at-large bid for the first time that the CAA is putting in two schools since David Robinson was playing for Navy, a CAA school, in 1986 when I was 5 years old. And we're not talking about George Mason.
And it's kind of this do no wrong attitude. We were talking about earlier today, you had there's almost this feeling, and I was also speaking to someone who's sort of in with the team at Maryland, being an alum. We all these create great connections once we graduate. There's just this feeling that they don't care. Yeah. The NIT is almost more of an insult than not even going to any tournament in the eyes of a program like Maryland that watches Duke, watches Carolina, watches NC State and all these other teams make the big dance while they're playing in the NIT. And to me, listen, yeah, it stinks that you didn't get to go to the NCAA tournament. It stinks that you didn't do well enough to make that level and you're in the NIT. But make the most of it. You get to play extra basketball. Bullweevil State in Nowheresville, Georgia, doesn't get to play any postseason basketball, but you get to go play in the NIT. So make the most of it. Stop being a bunch of crybabies.
I believe that Bullweevil State's mascot is the Golden Armadillos. Just to throw out a little knowledge out there.
Fantastic.
Fairfax.
Fantastic. Well, all right. I want to mention again, we're going to be taking some phone calls. We'll give you the number post-haste for that, and so stay by your phones, people, because it's going to be very, very fun to get everybody involved talking about high school basketball, all that good stuff. All right, let's get right to it. Boys basketball, state finals, Herndon, Booker T. Washington. Booker T. Washington wins this game at the Siegel Center in Richmond, 55-51 over Herndon. And BJ, let's just get right to the point, because this is the topic of conversation everyone in the regional basketball community is talking about. Are we cursed? Is the Northern Region just hexed to now not have won in 25 years?
I was talking to another reporter after the game. We were in the locker room. Jeff was also with me. Not the locker room, the media room afterwards when Scotty and Danny Jones came in to speak to us. Both very upset. We'll get to those details, but just talking with the other reporter, we talked about it. 25 years, the Northern Region hasn't had a state title. And it may be another 25 years before the Northern Region has an opportunity like they just had. I mean, that was a team that it seemed like could have gotten it done, and for the first quarter at least was getting it done after such an incredible run to this point. I was doing the broadcast for FSN. I barely spoke for the last 2 minutes of the broadcast because I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It almost
stunned disbelief.
Yeah, it almost seemed like, okay, guys, okay, win now. Win now. And they did the same thing against Tallwood in the double overtime game, and it was just, you were just sitting there saying, all right, it almost seemed like, and we talked about it on the show when I called in last week, they seemed like the team of destiny. And as cheesy as that sounds, it was true. And everybody just was waiting. And I wrote about it this week in the Connection newspapers, our publication. 7,500 people were at the Siegel Center at VCU. The majority of them in Herndon red, and it was just you had a feeling that it was only 32 minutes away right before the tip off, and I can't say that I was not stunned. I was totally stunned, as were all the fans, I think, in attendance.
Jeff, when you and I were sort of following the semifinal game from the Fairfax Sports Network world headquarters here in Merrifield, I think when we found out that game went final in overtime in the manner in which Herndon won, we both kind of thought the same thing, which is that Herndon, coming off that semifinal win, was going to have the kind of momentum that you need to go and just trounce whoever you're playing in the finals to win a state championship. But it turns out, that momentum didn't necessarily carry over, I don't think.
Well, I mean, it carried them for a little bit. They got up 10-3, and I remember thinking, wow, this could be a blowout, if they go on another big run. And I think all of a sudden it became a 10-10 game, and I think from there on out it was really nip and tuck. And I think just looking at the game as a whole, I think Booker T's players, as a whole, did more than Herndon was able to do. I mean, they did kind of the little things. I think if you would play this game again, I would still probably pick Herndon based upon what they were able to kind of do against some better teams during the regular season. They played all those nationally ranked teams, but just like I said, 3 years ago when South Lakes was playing Highland Springs, it's hard to always judge just by looking at a team. I think obviously with Scotty Reynolds on Herndon, you would favor them, but Booker T. Washington did a lot of the little things right, the things that you need to do, especially in the second half to win ball games. They as we discussed, they had the big rebounding edge, and they came up with some big buckets on the offensive boards to they got enough done to win.
You make a good point about that momentum. Herndon comes out, outscores Booker T. Washington 18-12 in the first quarter. Then it's almost flipped in the second, 18-11. Booker T. has the advantage going into halftime. So quickly that momentum wears off. Like you said, they came out guns a-blazing, but in the second quarter, it was pretty apparent that Booker T. was going to be in this game.
Right. I mean, and I think for Booker T. too, I know, based upon, the kind of a scouting report on Booker T., their shooting wasn't, feared, and they only shot 35% for the game. But they hit a couple three-pointers early, and they hit one at the buzzer to actually put them up, going into halftime. But I think Herndon had to respect them just a little on the outside, a little more than they thought they might have. They were playing a zone most of the game and really kind of saying, all right, Booker T, take shots on the outside. And they hit a couple. But then in the second half, I believe they had in the fourth quarter alone, they had 2 or 3 offensive putbacks. That's just guys getting in the paint and getting dirty and getting it done.
And you make an interesting point. I was at the semifinal game against Marshall. Let's talk a little bit about that. This semifinal game by Booker T was won on a last-second shot at the buzzer by Miles Holly. And I mentioned that name, Miles Holly. In the Herndon game, Miles Holly, 9 rebounds, 9 points, 6 blocks. So he was the inside presence again. And you mentioned offensive putbacks. Herndon, let's be honest, got killed on the boards. 42-31 was the total differential, and on the offensive rebounds, it was 15-5. So digest that for a minute. Offensive rebounding means you're getting an extra opportunity to shoot the ball at your basket. And it seems 15-5, but that's a lot. That's 10 more opportunities you have to score than the other team.
And you look at the stats,
right.
Booker T had 14 more field goal attempts during the game.
Right.
This was going to be an advantage for Booker T coming into this game. They out-rebounded Marshall 29-19 in the semifinal game. That offensive rebounding total, though, for them compared to what Herndon has, you don't want to single anybody out, but you have to look at Larry Benyon in this game for Herndon. This is a guy who's been able to be a real presence on the inside for them. He comes out of this game with 3 total rebounds and none on the offensive boards, and it hurt him, I think.
Well, he played 28 minutes in the ball game and had 3 rebounds and 4 points. It's not his best performance, and he'll be the first to tell you that. But I do have to kind of come full circle here with the nationally ranked schedule that they played against those 5 big teams. When I talked to Coach Gary Hall at the beginning of the season, preview time, I asked him about the schedule, and we've talked about it on the show, and he in particularly singled out 2 guys that this schedule was supposed to help make better, and it was Danny Jones and Larry Benyon. Danny Jones fought like a wild man on the boards, and you can't take anything away from what Danny did in his effort. Danny had, I think it was 8 rebounds, 2 offensive rebounds, and 9 points and 2 blocks. So that's a lot of work for a junior, and he got in there, and I think that the dividends in Danny showed, whereas I think Larry struggled a bit more. And not to pinpoint anything on one player, talking to Coach Hall after the game, it was a sense of, we didn't lose this game because Matt Seeger missed an open 3, right before the final seconds of the game. He had an open shot and missed it. He said, we didn't lose this game because Scotty Reynolds was 5 of 10 from the free throw line. We didn't lose this game because, and he listed a bunch of things that individual players did wrong. And it was just a culmination of individual players making mistakes, and all of that in the long run hurt Herndon, and it was a 4-point swing that, say Scotty Reynolds hits 5 more free throws, that's a 1-point win.
It was across the board. I mean,
so
you look at the scoring totals, no one else cracked 10.
Right.
Scotty dropped 20 in the game. The second leading scorer was Jones with 9. But let's talk about Reynolds, because he is the focal point of the team.
Right.
He was the big, Jeff and I had, of course, the pleasure of taking a few calls last week while you were in Richmond, and we're surprised that there are so many people that just want to kill this kid. Yeah. I mean, we watch him play, we understand what he brings to this team, but to be honest with you, 5 of 10 from the line, 20 points overall in a game like this, doesn't that fuel the critics?
Yeah, it's going to fuel the critics, and I'll tell you this, the critics are lucky that I wasn't here last week, because I got a whole lot to say about, if you have anything negative to say about Scotty Reynolds, because we are lucky to have had a young man of his stature play in the northern region when private schools are scooping these kids up and sitting them on their bench for the next 4 years and turning them into NBA studs. So we are lucky to have had a player of that nature in our region. First things first. Now, second thing, you got to say, if you're Booker T. Washington, Coach Darren Sanderlin, and you're going into a game against Herndon, whose rock is Scotty Reynolds, you're going to double team him. You're going to make sure Scotty Reynolds doesn't have a good game. If you do let Scotty Reynolds beat you, you're the worst coach ever, okay, in a state title game. Scotty torched a lot of teams around here this year, and that's to be expected. But in a state title game, if you let Scotty beat you, you're not a good coach. And he did the right thing. He double-teamed him, sometimes triple-teamed him through weird, crazy zones that made him think it was a zone, and then it was really a man, and it was really a man, and it was really a zone. So, he had 20 points, too. Let's not forget that. That's not a Scotty-like performance, a kid that's averaging 27 points a game. But it's a performance in a state title game where maybe, you needed a little bit more effort from some of the guys around you to kind of carry you.
And let's give Booker T some credit. I mean, this is, out of all the games I've seen, for Herndon in the last, 4 years, this was probably the best I've ever seen Scotty be defended. Whenever he picked up the ball going over half court, he was getting double teamed, and even when he wasn't getting double teamed, Antoine Perry, number 5 for Booker T. Washington, and David Sanders, number 3. They were doing a pretty good job, even when they were defending him solo, doing a pretty good job of forcing him in the lane, sticking real tight on the inside. And every time Scotty went in the lane, 2 big bodies, led by Miles Holly, were up there. I think Scotty got his shot blocked 2 or 3 times, really challenging him even when he went in the lane. And when we saw Scotty against T.C. Williams, for instance, Scotty got to the rim when he wanted and was able to put the ball down. In this game, he was really defended, and you could see him getting, I think, more and more frustrated as the game went on.
So the devil's advocates that look at his line and see 9 for 20 from the field, 5 of 10 from the line, 20 points, 4 turnovers to lead all the players in the game. You're saying all of that, well, obviously not the free throws, but the rest of it is a product of the defense that he faced, and not necessarily Scotty having an off night?
I think it was a combination of both. When you're at the free throw line, you got to knock him down, and he was the first to tell you that after the game. 5 of 10. Scotty shot 50% only 3 times this year, and 42.9% was his worst total. So this was a rare thing. It just happened at the wrong time. So I think it was a combination of him struggling and also a damn good team playing some physical defense on the Hornets all around, not just Scotty. They were boxing out. I talked to Coach Darren Sanderlin after the game. I said, Coach, it was rebounds. And he said, we did what Herndon did tonight in our regional final. They lost to Tallwood. The team that Herndon beat in double overtime just a game before this final. So they got their butts handed to them on the rebounds, and they learned their lesson when it cost them less. They learned it in a regional final. So they came in as an underdog, a Cinderella, if you will, a regional runner-up, and they learned their lesson. Herndon learned that in the wrong way at the wrong time in the last game of the season.
Gotcha. And you sort of would agree with that, the combination of both?
Yeah, I mean, for whatever reason, Scotty at the line, even in the semifinal game, I think he was 4 from 9. So at the free throw line to be 9 of 19 in his final 2 games, that's really shocking. I mean, I remember as a freshman, going to some of his games, and if he missed 2 free throws in a game, you had thought, like the world, turned upside down. So, I mean, for whatever reason, I remember he went to this game after a technical foul was called. Nobody standing on the free throw line and missed 2. And I think right after that, Coach Gary Hall, took him out of the game for like a minute or 2 and said, look, just, probably clear your head. I know it's frustrating, but, just take a seat, take a deep breath and get back out there. But he was definitely frustrated. And like I said before, Booker T's defense, that's the reason they won this game. This was Herndon's lowest scoring output of the season, 51 points. Booker T didn't win this because they're a great offensive team. It's because they play good defense and they rebound.
Oh, in the Marshall game, they couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. They shot 18.8% from the three-point line against Marshall.
Yeah.
18.8% from the three-point line. You're right, Jeff. It was totally defense, and we always hear the cliche, defense wins championships. That's living proof right there.
There you go. You gave 110% on that answer, by the way.
Left it all out there on the field, Greg.
All right, and the girls' game, briefly, Edison loses to Forest Park, 57-56, an incredibly tight game between these two teams, as expected, I think. But I think what you come away from this game with is understanding that Thomas Edison came into this game with an extraordinarily talented but extraordinarily young lineup. They don't graduate any starters, and it showed, I think, in the postseason. We've been talking about it for the last few weeks. This is a very, very good team, but a very, very inconsistent team. And there were stretches in each of their playoff games you could point to and say, well, they let that team back into it. And you look at what happened in this game against Forest Park, 17-8 they led after the first quarter, then they trailed, then they lost the second quarter 21-14, then they won the third quarter 12-10, and they lost the fourth quarter 18-13. Up, down, up, down. To me, that's a product of a young team.
Oh, they went into the half with the lead. And that's a tough thing for a young team to have. Now, let's be honest here. This is a Forest Park team that had a 15-point lead last year in the state final against Princess Anne that they blew. And this is the 2004 state champions, Forest Park. So this is a team that's been on this stage 3 years in a row and is 2 for 3. So this young team in Edison playing a Forest Park team that's been there before and has got 2 collegiate-bound players, Ashley Braxton and Monica Wright. Jeff, has the info on where they're going. But I mean, those are 2 players right there that they held in check for the first half of the game, and then they just let it get out of hand. Monica Wright got a rebound. And by the way, they killed them on the rebounds too. That was the story for both teams. 34-23. Monica Wright gets a rebound, falls to her knees, guys, and hits a shot from her knees. She shot the ball from her knees. It was the craziest thing. I've never seen that before. And we were on the sidelines just throwing our hands up at this point because they had really started to let her get off. The story of the game was Danny Jackson, 14 points. She's a freshman, strong left hand. I've never seen a freshman play that way. She played like a senior.
And it's the old rule in the NBA, Jeff, the complementary players. You can't win with one star. You might win with 2 stars. If you have 3 stars, you're going to win. And you look at this game, Dorena Campbell and Adria Crawford for Edison, they combined for 34 points. And Monica Wright and Ashley Braxton, they combined for 34 points. The difference in the game, Danny Jackson's 14 for Forest Park.
Jackson was able to get in the lane when she wanted to. I mean, she was, I think about 5'3", but got in the lane, was pulling off spin moves and getting to the basket. But I mean, if you watch the game, it was never, Edison, I think, had a 4-point lead going into the fourth quarter. So, but it was really nip and tuck going back and forth. Dorena Campbell gave Edison the lead. Right before Braxton hit 2 free throws with 4 seconds left to win it. So it was real nip and tuck. But when you have the veterans like Forest Park has, Braxton's going to Pittsburgh and Monica Wright's going to UVA. Edison doesn't have anybody that's going to be playing in college next year. So I think that's why if you look next season, I think you'd have to give Edison a real shot at winning this, getting this far again and winning it.
But you mentioned Edison doesn't have anyone that's going to play collegiate basketball, and that's just
next
now
year.
because they have got some incredible star power. Darina Campbell is a junior that is just everything, all regional, all district, all state. And then there's Adria Crawford, who's only a sophomore this year, looks like a senior and plays like one. Down in the post, this girl can bang with the best of them. She's always on the ground fighting for loose balls. This team started 3 juniors and 2 sophomores and had some seniors that really didn't play significant minutes. So it's hard to see how this team would not be back at the state tournament in some format next year. But of course, there's other teams looming out there, even in our region, T.C. Williams.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that Darina Campbell could start for the Maryland men at this point. All right, we're going to continue to talk about the high school basketball championship games, and we invite you, the viewer, to call in and discuss them with us. The number that you want to call is 703-573-5483. So it's 703-573-LIVE. It's right here. 573 live. I gave you the numbers because I can't do the letter thing personally. I can't do it at all. I can't even access my voicemail on my cell phone because it's letters instead of numbers. So call us up and give us a ring, and we'll continue to talk about the high school championships. But I want to actually at this point also invite you to call in and answer our impossible trivia question. We're actually putting the impossible trivia question out to the viewers if they choose to take a shot at it. And what is that impossible trivia question this week, Mr. BJ? You would like I to read it? I will read it. All right. The question that we want to pose to you, the viewer, is what Northern Region girls player holds the record for most points in a state tournament, single game and 3-game series, and the record for most field goals made? That's the big question.
You're going to have to write that down if
I
you're out
know,
there
we might have
watching.
to throw that up there again. All right, so if you want, give us a buzz. If you can get through the mighty Brian Nern, producer, who is the be-all and end-all when it comes to comments and questions, more power to you. 703-573-5483 is the number.
We're live.
And we're live.
We're live,
Let's mention that.
Here Wednesday night, we are a live show. It's something new for the viewers to call in. And
Something new for you.
Hey, I was calling in
You were
last week.
calling in last
I was
week.
a viewer last week,
very
actually.
excited.
It was a happier time last week, too.
Thank you.
Let's move to the NCAA tournament, boys, because we all have our brackets in front of us, and it's going to be an interesting tournament. Jeff, what do you think, just looking at the first couple of rounds, do you have any big upsets? Do you want to, or do you, I mean, I know you are a bit of a prognosticator. You, of course, are the king of all prognosticators in the Connection Newspapers football pool.
Yes.
But please to be telling me if you know any upsets to keep our eyes on in the first couple of rounds.
Well, as you know, Greg, I normally end up putting all the number 1 seeds in the Final Four, so I'm not a risk taker. And I think if you go to the Gazette, Alexander Gazette, one of our papers this week, you did a nice job of putting in a story about how certain coaches and people around the county kind of pick this. But I play it kind of close to the vest. Usually pick some upsets in the first round. I think NC State a 10-7 win over California, that could be an upset in the early round. And even one of the local games, I have UNC Wilmington beating George Washington in a 9-8 game.
I disagree
Look
with
at
I
this guy
disagree with that
stealing
so
my
much.
upset.
No, both of you are
outta here.
insane. Listen,
Jeez.
GW is going to go into this game all kinds of ticked off about getting snubbed, about getting thrown this bit. They're going to come out a house of fire, man. They're going to blow out UNC Wilmington.
Even without their best player.
Even without their best player. Oh, we got a call. Hey, you're on Fairfax Sports Report. How you doing? Oh, hey. Bit of an echo chamber.
Could you hear that?
Hello?
I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We got you.
Go ahead, caller.
I was calling in on your trivia question.
Please be telling us the answer to the impossible trivia question.
I think the impossible trivia question would be Kara Lawson from West Springfield.
It was mighty low. We couldn't hear you for a moment, actually.
All right. It was, I
If
think
you hold on 1 second, we will ask you to repeat the answer to the impossible trivia question. Are you still there?
I am.
Okay.
I think the impossible trivia question answer is Kara Lawson from West Springfield, played for Billy Gibson. and I think she hit 47 for her high game.
That's absolutely
correct.
correct. 47 the high game. In 3-game series, she had 95 points, and the most field goals made right there, 36 points, or 36 field goals rather made. And now she's talking on ESPN News about the women's tournament. She's grows up so fast. Isn't it amazing? But you are correct, sir, and you will get an official B.J. Kuberoulis autographed styrofoam water cup. But you'll have to come down to the studio to get it.
Gotcha.
Hey, you got any other questions? You filled out your bracket yet?
I haven't, but I was down at the games at Richmond, and I did want to comment about Scotty Reynolds. I think he got a real raw deal in the sense that he has intensity that people just don't understand, and the frustration he felt. It was unfortunate. It looked worse than it was. He just wanted to win the game, and we're going to miss seeing players like him around. And as a longtime basketball fan, I'm picking Edison all the way for next year. Anyway, you guys have a great show.
You got it, man. Thanks for the call. Hey,
Sure.
We actually didn't address that. The other controversy of that game, the Scotty Reynolds medal chucking incident that was reported in several different ways and several different publications. From what you guys could gather, what did you see?
Well, basically right after George Washington, right after Booker T. Washington won, their fans kind of, stormed the court, and they were doing some celebrating, but they also kind of went to the far end of the court where the Herndon fans, were obviously seated, and there was, I think, some kind of words exchanged, some kind of like, in your face kind of deal. So
right.
That's when the water bottles started raining down from the crowd, and there was some more throwing back and forth. But I think, Scotty, once he received his medal, he, just in frustration, he ended up chucking it, and he kind of apologized for it later in the interview room.
Exactly, and I think if you ask him 25 years from now, he'll tell you he merely chucked his ribbons and not his medal, like a certain presidential candidate. Hey, got another call. Welcome to the Fairfax Sports Report. How are you this evening?
Good. How you guys doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
All right. Just wanted to make a comment with regard to the defensive play. I thought that the Booker T just they really outplayed Herndon on the boards, and I was really surprised after because that went on through the first half and through the entire game, and I was really surprised as good a coach that Gary Hall is that he didn't make an adjustment to try and fix that. Because Herndon was in the game as rough as they played Scotty. With minute 15 to go, they're still a point ahead. So, with all that said, I think you got to put a lot of blame on the coaching staff there because I think that they were in the game all the way, and if they work with making some adjustments, I think possibly it comes out a little bit different.
And I think, to answer your question, I think Coach Hall took some of the onus, if you will, after the game and took some of that blame and would not allow his players to take the blame. But, there's not a whole lot of adjustments you can make, when it's basically go box out and get some rebounds. Josh Hedden's a great player. Maybe we would like to see him in there, maybe banging a little bit. But I think when it's a matter of something that's a fundamental of the game, no matter what adjustment or change you make, you've got to have the players you have in there executing and really boxing out. That was really all it was. It was just box out.
And I don't know if Herndon had problems because they were in the zone defense most of the game. I don't know if they had trouble, once a shot was taken, maybe crashing the paint a little more. But like the caller said, Herndon was up by 1 with about a minute 30. And one of the things I kind of noticed is there weren't a lot of fouls called on the interior in the paint.
Right.
Whether it was going for a rebound or somebody taking a shot. So I think that allowed Booker T to really remain aggressive in the paint, whether they were going for a rebound, going for a tip in, or playing defense on somebody coming in the lane. So I think the fact that the refs kind of let him play and that kind of played to Booker T's hand a little more.
Which is expected in a state final, let him play. I happen to think it's just a matchup problem. I think Booker T in the semifinals and the finals proved that they are a superior rebounding team to either Marshall or Herndon. And like BJ said, if the players don't box out, if they don't play fundamentally strong basketball and try to do something to counteract that. It's tough for a coach to do anything to overcome a deficiency like that.
And even sometimes I remember seeing Danny Jones like just in real good position, and just the Booker T kids were real athletic, were jumping. I mean, just getting that little bit of advantage, and they were getting some tip-ins. So maybe sometimes sometimes it was effort, but sometimes I think Booker T just had more talent.
I talked to Danny after the game too about rebounds, and really, I mean, he made a good point. You can do all the fundamentals right too. It's sometimes, as cliche as it sounds, the ball just doesn't come your way. I mean, but in this particular instance, I think there's no excuses. And I think they did take the big men did take the blame after the game. Everybody tried to take the blame after the game, as good teammates do. But coaching changes, whatever you want to say. You box out, you clean up the rebounds, you win the ball game.
You still there, caller?
Yeah, and I don't argue with anything that you guys have said. I think even having said that Herndon got outplayed on the boards, they didn't make the plays underneath. Scotty dished the ball out several times where the guys underneath just missed. I mean, easy shots, and had that happened, and again, it would have it could have potentially been a different game, and they just didn't execute the way that they had in the entire year.
They picked a heck of a time to do it, huh?
Yeah, that's a bad time. I my kids don't go to Herndon, but I'd love to watch them play, and they've had a heck of a season, and it's fun just to watch a high school team play at that level, and especially at the level that that Scotty plays, and he will be missed, as a previous caller said. Fun guy to watch, and it'll be many years before we probably see somebody with that kind of talent come through this area again.
You're probably right, man. Well, thanks for the call. We appreciate it.
Okay.
The question I have for you is going back to what we were speaking about real briefly. The medal thing is whatever it is.
Yeah.
I mean, the kid's frustrated. What about the bottles thing? I mean, the bottles thing is something where we've heard a lot of different versions of it. We actually had the editor-in-chief of the newspaper come and give his version of the story today. What do you think about that? I mean, was it mostly Herndon fans showing out a little frustration, or was it sort of a two-sided coin?
Jeff wrote an interesting column about it this week in the Connection newspapers, and so I'll pass it over to him. But briefly, I will say that if there was any controversy as to who started this incident, and the incident being bottles being thrown from the crowd onto the floor while Booker T was celebrating, if there's any question as to who started this incident, it's all put to rest, because on FSN's Game of the Week doing the show, re-watching that, you can see clearly the first stone or bottle was cast from the Herndon fans.
Yeah, and it was both sides. There was kind of a fight, in the stands, kind of mini fight, in the first quarter, and then during halftime, some Booker T fans went on a Herndon side and were holding up signs. So I think there was some talking, back and forth, and with the bottles, it was just a couple knucklehead kids probably. Saying, hey, I'm gonna get out of here. Take this bottle and do what you want.
Take one with me. Yeah. Got another call. Hey, welcome to the Fairfax Sports Report.
Hey, how are you guys doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
I enjoyed watching Herndon this year. They were Scotty was great, and I enjoyed y'all's coverage. I went to every state game, and I think what's most disheartening is to think that they played their worst game of the year in the state championship game. I don't think Booker T was the most talented team they played in the state tournament. I think they were outmanned physically, and it was just it hurt to watch, because physically, and they were more talented than Booker T, and they should have won that game. They had every opportunity to win that game, every opportunity, and to see it go away with not boxing out, not putting in a layup, and to have Scotty come down and miss free throws when that's something, as you guys pointed out, he really doesn't do. To have him miss free throws, it just hurt, because as you guys said earlier, it's been 25 years since the Northern Region has won a championship, and this was their best opportunity by far, and it probably will be their best opportunity for a long, long time.
It's that Northern Region voodoo, man. I mean, the Northern Region is the Boston Red Sox of Virginia basketball. We are hexed. We are cursed, and I don't know the solution. I mean, this is what happens. They're not the first team to go to the state finals, and all of a sudden, the things that have worked up until that point go haywire. It's a crazy thing. I don't know if it's just I don't know if there's extra pressure knowing that there is a 25-year sort of gap between championships now. I mean, a lot of publications at the beginning of the year and also towards the end of the year really made a big deal out of the fact that there is this drought. So Herndon probably goes into this game not only thinking, okay, this could be our only shot to win a title, but okay, we've got the eyes of the entire northern region on us to break this schneid, you know?
Yeah, and I think in more recent seasons we've started to get more. I mean, there's been years and years where we don't even put somebody in the finals. And this year we could have had two. Wouldn't that have been something if Marshall would have made it to the finals? Then the streak would have been broken, and they had a good chance to do it. But I think at least lately we've at least gotten some team in the finals. South Lakes went a couple years ago, and I mean, but I don't know. I mean, when you look at over the state as a whole, it seems like the Eastern region and the teams down at the beach, and then some of the teams from the Richmond area just seem to have. I guess maybe better basketball teams as a whole. I think I would agree that the northern region was down a little bit this year. That Herndon, obviously I think we picked from the beginning that they were the strongest team and they played the strongest schedule. That's one of the reasons they scheduled some of those better teams outside the region. And I mean, we could easily be talking about them winning and the streak being over right now. It was just a matter of a couple points.
I think if you play this game 10 times, I think Herndon wins 9 times. And it's just that Cinderella type, region runner-up, chip on your shoulder. Booker T came in. And one quick point I wanted to make is, look at Marshall. Look at Marshall almost knocking off Booker T, and then Herndon struggling the way they did. And Marshall doesn't have even what you'd even consider a big man. So I think that's got to speak volumes about Kevin Weirin over there with the Statesman. But that's for another day. This being Herndon's day.
It's most weeks actually on this show. Hey, Caller, let me ask you. So you're in the camp where Herndon lost this game and Booker T did not win this game. Am I correct?
Yes, I think Booker T. I think Herndon played not to lose. Booker T came out and said, we're going to win this game. And they took it to him physically. And Herndon had that early lead in the first quarter, and they kind of got confident. And then the next thing you know, Booker T stepped up. They drew charges. They blocked a couple shots. They blocked Benyon's shot once or twice. He never put up a shot again.
He never shot again. Right? I think Josh Hedden too. He took a 3-pointer from the corner, and it was an air ball long, and I don't recall him taking many shots after that either. So I think it definitely had it was a confidence booster for Booker T to play good defense and get some blocks early on and hit some 3-pointers. Whereas Herndon, even late in the game, it was one of those things where if you're down by a point, some of the adrenaline gets flowing. You're getting nervous, and you gotta. It's do or die time, and unfortunately Herndon they died.
The Miles Holly kid, by the way, had 9 blocks in 2 games, semifinals and finals in the Siegel Center. That's pretty impressive.
Well, I'm interested to know from our caller, how bad did you think it was going to be when Scotty comes out guns blazing in the first quarter? Did you think Northern Region was going to run away with this thing?
I thought when he hit his first 2 3-pointers, he thought, wow, that's a real good start. But my immediate concern was they've got to play defense.
Yep.
Because this team could play defense. And I've never questioned Herndon putting points on the board. But you just have to question what kind of defense can they play. And when Benyon he went away, Danny Jones, I liked his aggressiveness. He kept on trying. Even if he got blocked, he'd go up. Scotty, he got blocked on numerous occasions, but he kept on putting them up, and that's what a star player does. I was impressed with the little guy, Chase Miller. I mean, for a little guy, he played really well. I was just very disappointed with Benyon, and I thought he had a bad game as well in the semifinals. I mean, he missed 2 dunks in the semifinal. He missed a breakaway layup in the semifinal. And for somebody that big and that tall and who can jump and is that athletic, I thought, I don't want to point it on anybody like you guys said, but
right.
If you had to, if someone put a gun to your head and said, hey, pick what happened, that was the key, as well with the free throws. And I hadn't known Scotty to miss those type of free throws. That's what was so, I guess, shocking.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thanks for the call. Free throws killed him. Yeah, just absolutely killed him in this game. And unfortunately, Scotty got fouled the most. He went to the line the most, and 5 of 10 really, really hurt him in this game. The interesting thing, though, just going over the box score for the state final again, Herndon had 6 guys that they played with the primary minutes. 6 guys that basically were over 14 minutes apiece for the game. Booker T. Washington had about 8 guys that were all over 15 minutes for the game. Should Herndon have gotten a little bit more folks involved in this game? Was it a fatigue factor at all, or is that just too much reading into the numbers?
I think that's as deep as they go looking at the roster. I mean, and looking at the guys who got the minutes. I mean, Victor Robinson and Richard Gore. Richard Gore being the guy that hit the layup to take them into the state finals. They didn't get a lot of minutes, but I don't think you question the minutes. I think the guys that got the minutes are the guys that got the minutes all year. Victor Robinson, Richard Gore were sent in sporadically. Maybe someone had the flu one game. Maybe someone was injured another game, and they got their playing time. But, Herndon was deep, Northern Region deep. Herndon wasn't deep, state deep. And I think we saw the true meaning of depth in an athletic team in Booker T. Washington that had, the entire roster all the way one down, just as we see the minutes spread.
Yeah, I mean, they came off an overtime game, but like we said, they played a zone defense, so it's not like they were chasing guys off of screens and really wearing themselves down. And even Herndon on offense, they were pretty patient up court. This wasn't an up-tempo, full court game. This is pretty much half court. And I think, Gary Hall tried to look at some matchups. I mean, Matt Seeger only played 14 minutes. I think athletically he might have been just a little, I'm not going to say out of his league, but maybe the matchup wasn't there because they were trying to get some more size, maybe get some more rebounding. But I don't think Herndon was worn out. I think but they definitely were maybe mentally frustrated as the game went on.
The caller mentioned Chase Miller, and I think we were talking about it, Jeff, before the show. 4 rebounds for Chase Miller.
And 2 of them offensive.
And he's the smallest guy on the court. And this is a kid who's had such a long road, and to get to the state final in his 4th year, how many different high schools he's been to, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 8 points, and he only really, he played 26 minutes, but that's a heck of a showing for a guy that's coming off the bench.
Right, and he took a 3-pointer late that I thought looked good. It almost went in. And I almost wanted Chase to shoot a little more. He had a couple times he was open at the 3-point line and passed up a shot, and I was kind of like, you've been playing well. If you have an open shot, take it. I mean, you saw Booker T. Washington, every chance they had, at a 3-point shot, they put up 24 in the game, and they're not a 3-point shooting team. So sometimes you just got to let it fly.
And if I had told you before the game that Chase Miller would out-rebound Larry Benyon, I think you'd probably know what the final was going to be. But if you want to get in touch with us again, the number is 703-573-LIVE, 703-573-LIVE. Getting back to the old NCAA bracket for a moment, boys. Now, we were talking about GW before. I think GW is going to win this game. I think they're very upset. But looking locally again, before we get to a certain team out of Fairfax, I happen to think that Georgetown's going to have a little run in this tournament. I think Georgetown is a better team than people give them credit for. I think John Thompson is a very underrated coach. Only because, I know you're going to laugh, because you think he's overrated because his
dad's
father.
overrated.
I think he's a good coach. I just think he doesn't get enough credit because of his father. Because it's too easy to just say, oh, well, it's not the John Thompson, it's just a John. No, come on. He's a good coach. I think they're going to win. I think they're going to beat Northern Iowa. I think they're going to knock off the Ohio State. And I think they're going to make it all the way before getting beaten by Florida.
You do know that game against Ohio State is in Dayton, Ohio.
That's right. Too much pressure.
Backyard.
All that home cooking.
Can we go to the real local team, the people's champ? I mean, the team that has just captivated Fairfax's heart.
We already talked about Herndon.
The George Mason Patriots, baby. I've been waiting for it, man. I went to George Mason. I'm an alumni of the Patriots. I was there for their NIT run. In fact, if you want to call in and talk about how much you love George Mason, please do. As I'm shedding my journalistic...
So 703-573-LIVE would be the number. BJ graduated with a Bachelor of Custodial Arts degree. I don't know if you knew that.
It's also, I got a minor in communications.
Oh, did you?
Yes,
I
actually major was in custodial arts, whatever that may be. But look, the Patriots are taking on Michigan State, a team they played very tough in the BB&T Classic. This is a team in George Mason that tied their school record for 23 games in a season. They won that 2 years ago when they got shafted by the committee and were sent into the NIT. They beat Austin Peay and Tennessee before getting torn apart by Luke Jackson and Oregon at god-awful hours of the night, if anybody remembers that NIT tournament. But here they are, and they're going in to play Michigan State in the first round, minus their best player in Tony Skinn, who how do I put this nicely to the young viewers of Fairfax out there? I guess it's past their bedtime.
Low
but
blow.
He gave someone a little bit of a low blow in the Hofstra game was. John Feinstein actually did an incredible article about it today in the Washington
Actually,
Post.
I wrote a book about it. That's his next book.
Yes, the
wrote it in a
blow.
week.
The low blow heard around Fairfax. But look, Jim Larinaga is doing an incredible job over there at George Mason University. This is a mid-major college. They get 2 teams in from the CAA, UNC Wilmington being my other upset pick over GW. 2 teams in, it's the first time since 1986 since David Robinson was at Navy. So, this is a conference that is up and coming, and I think they were helped by a lot of things. The ACC was down this year.
Thank you.
As Jeff Graham
ACC was
will
down this year.
definitely tell you. They
Right,
only get
'cause
4
they-
teams in, I think. So the CAA is helped by other big conferences being down, and I think that helped get UNCW and George Mason in, and 2 teams also playing in the NIT, Hofstra and Old Dominion. So it's a big year for the CAA.
Maybe one of them could beat Austin P. Let me ask you. I'll tell you this. I think George
What's
Mason.
Maryland doing this week,
Maryland.
actually?
Maryland is still coming off the afterglow of its national championship.
Oh, okay.
I have George Mason beating Michigan State in the first round. Actually, I think that's going to happen. I don't think they're going to. There's a chance in hell they get past North Carolina, but I think that they could beat and will beat Michigan State. Get the home cooking thing going on. Maybe a little bit. They're looking forward to maybe trying to win out to get to DC again. Who knows? I think they're going to win a first round game. You don't think so?
I've got Michigan State winning. I'm sorry.
I'm going with my heart, and I'm picking, obviously, George Mason. But without Tony Skinn, it's going to be tough. But if they can get Tony Skinn back in that UNC game, they're playing against them diaper dandies in UNC, man. It's going to be a heck of a battle. So.
All right, we gotta get cracking with this spring sports. Before we do, Final Four, Jeff Graham.
Duke, Memphis, UConn, Villanova, and I have UConn beating Duke
Memphis,
in the
huh?
finals.
Memphis, wow.
John
And you-
Calipari, you better do something right.
You better watch out for those Roberts fighting orals, wherever the hell they are.
Fighting Orals. I've got Duke, Pittsburgh, Boston College, and Illinois, and I've got an all-ACC final. Duke, BC. Duke takes the whole thing, man.
I have Pittsburgh going out in the first round at Kent State. My Final Four is Duke, UCLA, UConn, Florida, which gets in with a win over BC. My final 2, UCLA, UConn. My final 1, UConn.
Sleeper of the tournament, gentlemen. Who is your sleeper?
The sleeper in the tournament, I think, is West Virginia. I think I know it's sort of perilous because they could lose to Iowa in the second round, but if they get past Iowa, they can go on a little run. I actually have them going and playing Duke in the Elite Eight, and I love them because they play a system. They've got one big star. They're a really good tournament team, but again, it's the tournament. You can get tripped up in the second round with Iowa, but if they don't, I think they go on a little run.
My sleeper is Wichita State. This is a team that George Mason beat in
That's
the bracket
shocking.
buster to get that at-large bid. Many people believe that the Wichita State bracket buster win on ESPN was the game that got George Mason into the tournament. But I've got to mention, it's hard to pick a 3 seed as a sleeper, but I'm going to go ahead and do it. I think Iowa's going to be a sleeper. I think they've got a road that's very, very doable. Playing West Virginia possibly, and getting by an underachieving Texas team, and if they can get past Duke, they may make the Final Four.
There you go.
And when Iowa's done, Steve Alford's going to coach Indiana, so they better win the whole thing.
All right, taking a quick look at some spring sports. I know we've gotten a little pinched on time because of the phone calls, but hey, we got to talk about some hoop before we get to the spring. Looking at lacrosse, boys lacrosse, sort of an interesting situation with the redistricting. Robinson now in the Concord, plus they got hit with graduation. They got a new coach. Talked to him today for a little bit, Justin Fitzgerald. Offensively, not as strong as they've been in years past. They're still trying to figure out some chemistry issues there, and they go into the Concord where, of course, the mighty Oakton Cougars reside and all that good stuff. I think Robinson is still a team to watch. I think Woodson is still a team to watch because I think their defense might be some of the best defense in the northern region. And Lake Braddock is primed for a run this year, even though they lost their goalie to graduation. I think that they're going to be a team to watch. They're very balanced. They got a lot of good experience in all facets of the field, and they're a team to watch out of the Patriot.
I want to talk about 2 teams specifically. They are on 2 opposite ends of the spectrum, so bear with me here. Oakton has won every district title -1 since 1999, and they return many from that state championship football team and have 3 state lacrosse titles to their name. So a lot of rings for some of these football/lacrosse players. I don't know if they're going to have enough fingers for them by the time they graduate. But and on the other side of the spectrum, a team where I know I'm going to get Tony skinned right now for saying this. But South Lakes, and I've just got to throw the name out there because I think they're going to surprise some people. They returned 19 seniors on a team that didn't have any seniors last year, and returned their coach, which is the first time they've done that in 3 years. So I think they're returning a core squad, and I think they're going to surprise some people.
There you go.
And, I guess as far as, my teams, Chantilly, I was, talking with Coach Broderick this week. They play Langley, Westfield, Oakton, and they got I think Robinson on the schedule. So they actually play all of the region semifinals from last year. So that's a heck of a schedule. And let's not remember that this is an official state tournament this year that we have coming up. So whoever's going to win, they will be officially recognized by the Virginia High School League.
On the girls' side, I think Braddock's strong. I think Robinson's strong, even though they lost some folks to graduation. W.T. Woodson is going to have to find a way to replace all the goals Ashley McCulloch scored.
Wow.
She graduates as the leading scorer. Looking over at soccer now briefly, the team that I'm very excited about is Lake Braddock on the boys' side. They return a heck of a lot of firepower offensively. Gil Costa and a few others, and they have some good veteran leadership in the back as well. And Joe Seuss has been there for over a decade now, and I think that they're going to be primed for a run. Other than that, it's sort of an up and down year. I think looking at the Northern Region on the boys' side, it's you got some transition. You had a new coach at W.T. Woodson, which was a state finalist last year. So there's going to be some changes going on, not only with the redistricting, but also with some coaching changes.
On the girls' side, you see Tracy Burrell taking over Chantilly's boys. So Chantilly went to the state semifinals last year. And one team I'm looking at for is Centerville. They're a real quick team, got a lot of good seniors. Emily Juke is one of them. Real fast player that can led them in scoring last year. So I think Centerville is a team to look out for early on.
On the girls' side, Lake Braddock, what can you say? It's a soccer school these days. Lake Braddock was a runner-up in the Virginia AAA State Final last year, losing to Kellum. They graduated Lindsey Bowers, but they bring back a ton of talent. I mean, this is a team that I would be very surprised if they're not contending again for a state championship this year. You're talking about Kristen Bowers, you're talking about Leslie Cabe, Stephanie Hilton, just a myriad of players that have sort of been there for a while and have a lot of versatility. That's the one thing I love about Braddock and the way Liz Pike coaches the team, is that she will not hesitate to switch around roles and try to make something work if it's not working by taking a player that you've come to really sort of appreciate in one role on that team and then switch them quickly to another role on the team just to see if it'll work. And it usually does. I mean, the results speak for themselves with that program.
Neither of our soccer teams on girls or boys won a state title last year, which was
odd.
Very odd. Kellum won on the girls' side, and Thomas Dale, who had a heck of a run, beat Woodson in the finals on the boys' side. So I think this year, one of our teams is going to end up winning.
We should mention one more thing on the boys' side. Randy May coming back to the Northern Region. He goes to Stonebridge after leaving West Springfield, leading West Springfield to 3 state titles in 4 years. He goes to Stonebridge, and lo and behold, he's back here in the Northern Region.
And who was their first game scheduled against?
West Springfield. The Mighty Spartans.
That's the best scouting you can get for a new team. He already knows all the opponents they'll be taking on this year.
Absolutely. So it should be fun. I mean, usually the lacrosse and soccer are pretty good for the Northern Region to get something going on a state championship level, and it's good to get back out there. I mean, it's kind of cold now, but
yeah,
I mean,
I was just going to say the weather's really working out for us now. Now that we've finally getting the swing of things, it starts to get cold again.
Absolutely. If we have a chance to take a couple more calls, if you can get past master screener Brian Nern, the number, of course, 703-573-LIVE. 703-573-LIVE is the number. You give us a buzz if you get a chance. But just now in the to sort of wrap a pretty bow around the old basketball season, what are your final thoughts about these state championship tournaments? And all right, before we get to that, let's take a call. Why don't we? Caller, what's going on? Uh-oh.
Give you a heads up that West Springfield did defeat Randy May's club this year, 1-0 on Monday night.
Oh, is that so?
Nice.
Fantastic. Good to see that happen right there.
Yes.
Absolutely. Thank you for the call. Thank you for the heads up.
Randy May led Stonebridge to their first playoff appearance last year, so I mean he's really made an impact there. I think they're going to struggle a little bit more over in AAA, but the Stonebridge girls won a AA state title last year, so interesting to see how they do.
Call in your scores live. Fairfax Sports.
In case you're wondering, in case we didn't mention it, the answer to the trivia question was Kara Lawson. Single game, 47 points. 3 game series, 95 points, and most field goals, 36 points.
Thank you.
What's that pretty bow we were talking about, Greg?
Boys basketball. What do you say, boys? I mean, was it? You looking back on it? Do you think it's a season that we're going to look back on with happiness and joy, or are we going to look back at it with frustration?
Yeah, I think that overall you have to take a step back from what you just witnessed at the state final and say it was a great season. I mean, criticisms aside, and a lot of people are going to have a lot of opinions about that final game. If you take that game and remove it from the scenario, these kids had an incredible run. I mean, really, it's one of the best runs and probably will be one of the most memorable runs in recent history. First McDonald's All-American for the Northern region since 1993. South Lakes' Joey Beard. I think we mentioned it on this show a couple times, but we're lucky to have seen such an incredible team, and we're watching Scotty Reynolds on ESPN next year playing for Oklahoma. Anybody and all these callers who are calling in saying we had a special talent are going to get to have said that they saw that player, and you know what? The guys around him too. All the young talent that'll be coming back. It really was a great season. I just had a great time covering the team.
And remember when we looked back, we wondered whether Herndon could win, and Coach Hall wins his first region title, something that I know he was looking forward to, and they just came up a little short. But on the girls' side, I know beginning of the year, all we were talking about was Oakton's gonna win and Jasmine Thomas was gonna win, and it was really nice to see Edison step up with a young team and get to the finals and come within 1 point of winning the whole thing. And it's going to be great to see them next year try to catapult from this season onto next season, where they're all a year more experienced.
Absolutely. All right, folks. Want to remind everybody coming up, all kinds of good stuff. FSN Game of the Week coming in 2 weeks. Spring sports on the Fairfax Sports Network. Baseball, soccer, lacrosse, all kinds of good stuff. Check the website for the schedule for the Cox, Comcast, Verizon Channel 10 FSN Game of the Week. What is that website, BJ? fairfaxsportsnetwork.com. Check it out. Photo galleries, all sorts of fun and games. And I want to thank the folks that make the show possible every week. CCI Screen Printing for all of your screen printing needs, 703-978-0257. And Quality Care Ford Service Center, servicing all makes and models, 703-383-6299. And again, the book, Glow Pucks and 10-Cent Beer, the 101 Worst Ideas in Sports History, by me, Greg Wyszynski, available on Amazon.com.
I'll tell you what wasn't one of the worst ideas.
What's that?
Writing that book.
Yeah,
you like it. You like it.
All right. Well, hey, thanks to the callers. It was fun doing this again. Hopefully we can bring you another live show post-haste and get some more interaction with the folks that like to mix it up occasionally.
Yeah,
good to hear the callers that weren't just talking jive on Scotty Reynolds all night like they were last week.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, we're out at all the games and get a lot of people that come up and say they really enjoy the show, and it's good to get out there and brush elbows with people at games, and it's really those people that make what we do so enjoyable.
That's
Jeff.
right.
And we just love our fans.
You make love and fun.
Yes, we just love our fans.
You really do.
Nice Fleetwood Mac reference.
That's right. Thanks for watching, everybody. We appreciate it and enjoy the NCAA tournament. It's going to be good times all around.
Come on,
Take care.
UConn.